from Southern Maryland's weather leader. This is a JB Weather Report.
Hey, and good morning, everyone. I am forecaster John Bordash with you in the Storm Center this morning, and talk about a drastic shift. We have a lot to talk about. If you can hear me fine, let me know in the comments, and we will make sure that we are all good to go before we get too underway with things. And while I wait to make sure you can hear me, assuming you can, we're talking about a lot going on, and I was up all night. I think I clocked about 3 or 4 hours of sleep working on this forecast. There are so many ins and outs, and the dynamics with this system are so interesting. And I see the first comment coming in saying that they can hear me. Awesome. So good morning, everyone. I'm forecaster John Bordash, lead forecaster here at JB Weather, here to give you your morning update on what now looks to be our season's not just first snowfall, our season's first significant snowfall, and for some of you, this could be the biggest snow we've seen in just about 3 years. The dynamics we have at play would be that we're going to be talking about a developing area of low pressure that's going to be riding down to the south of our region tomorrow morning. Now, the first question I'm sure that comes to your mind is, how is it going to snow? We're sitting in the 50s and 60s right now. Well, we have a cold front that'll be working through the region later on this afternoon and evening, and that's going to help to usher in some colder air. And you'll notice that the colder air is rushing in because we're going to be talking about gusty northwest winds that kick in this afternoon, upwards of 25 to 30 miles an hour. Now, before we get too underway, I do want to let you know that you can find answers to the majority of your questions you may have on that link you'll find in the caption of this video. Head over to jbweather.net. The morning update answers a lot of those questions, and if you just want to know how much snow you're going to get, we have the ticker on the bottom that'll let you know. I have several different locations from across the region represented on there, and I'm sure you'll be able to find a location that's pretty close to you to get your latest forecast. But let's talk through this again. We see our area of low pressure moving to the south. We will be looking at an area of snow breaking out on the northern edge of that due to that cold air. And now that we've seen such a northwest trend with this system, we might even need to start introducing the idea of a wintry mix for some of you and a prolonged period of sleep. We'll get into that in just a second. The biggest update overnight and early this morning is that much of our region now sits under a winter storm watch shaded in blue. This includes all of southern Maryland, the DC metro area, parts of the Delmarva Peninsula, and on over towards central Virginia. This is where you're likely going to find the highest totals from this storm. I think in this area we could be talking about 3 to 6 inches of snow falling. As we head into this afternoon and evening, this watch will be either upgraded to a winter storm warning or downgraded to a winter weather advisory. And you can see that that's already taken place out west. That warning represents more significant impacts from higher snow totals, where the purple area, that winter weather advisory, represents more minor inconveniences due to nuisance snow totals. So we'll see exactly how the National Weather Service operates with this one, but as things stand right now, just before 9:30, we sit with that winter storm watch. Let me take you on over towards live William Richmond Inc. radar this morning. What we're able to see is that we've begun to clear out from the rain we saw this morning, and you can see this long boundary here that sits just to the south of our region that extends down into the southeast. And this is all associated with that cold front that's trying to work through. If we were to zoom into our region and let's take a look at some of these temperatures, we're sitting at 59 right now at Pax River. We're sitting at 60 degrees down here near Scotland. And that's that warm air. But if we put on that temperature profile, you'll notice there is plenty of cold air back to the north and west waiting to rush in. Another interesting thing to look at on the radar this morning, you can see where we already have snow and sleet beginning to develop with a developing area of low pressure across parts of Arkansas. This is going to be our storm system that develops and rides up along this cold front. What does the timing look like? When are we going to be looking at the worst of the weather pushing in? Let's take you on over towards Futurecast. This will really help, I think, show you what we're taking a look at. So this is sitting right around midnight tonight. We have rain across the area, snow back to the west. Temperatures initially will be too warm for snow. Yes, at midnight we'll probably be sitting in the 40s. We won't be looking at snow on the onset. We will just be looking at rain. What we will notice, though, as we push this forward, by 1 and 2 o'clock, as that cold air rushes in from the north, we start to see areas switch from rain over to snow, and you even see that pink area, that area of sleet. So the way that you will transition to snow is that you will start with rain, you will then go to sleet, and then we will go over to that period of snow, which could be moderate or heavy at times. I think areas north of Route 231, and that would run from Prince Frederick to Hughesville over to La Plata. I think that Benedict Bridge there in Calvert and Charles counties, areas from that point on north should not see a prolonged period of sleet. It will be areas south of that I'm the most concerned about that. But again, we'll get into that here in just a second. Our futurecast model shows that we quickly go over to that period of snow by about 4 o'clock, so that by sunrise we're looking at snow, potentially moderate to heavy snow at times, really focused from Annapolis to Washington, right around Route 50 point south here in parts of southern Maryland. Far southern communities down towards Ridge, Dameron, Scotland, St. Mary City might still be holding on to a period of sleet with rain down to the south of that. Futurecast shows that we keep that snow locked in throughout tomorrow morning, and not really even starting to clear up until after we head towards the midday hours, past lunchtime into the early to mid-afternoon. This is a big change we saw from yesterday's forecast. We were thinking this would get out of here by about 7 or 8 o'clock. Now it looks like we're going to be adding on a few hours of snow, hence the increased snow totals. And I think that we probably won't get the snow out of here until early to mid-afternoon. Let's get into the forecast, though. The area that I am the most concerned about seeing a prolonged period of sleet would be, again, from Prince Frederick to Mechanicsville, points south. Points north of that, you're looking at a quick transition to snow, maybe half an hour to an hour maximum with sleet. But it's areas south of that where you could be looking at maybe an hour or two sticking around with the sleet, which would cut down on your snow totals. Areas across far southern St. Mary's County, from St. Mary's City point south, you're looking at a more prolonged period of sleet, potentially 2, 3, maybe even 4 hours. Hence, that's why your snow totals will be lower, and you'll see that on the map here in a second. So we're going to need to watch this. Any additional hours of sleet will lead to lower snow totals, but if we can switch over quick, then we're talking about snow totals really ramping up. And that sleet will, again, be the most impactful down to the south, but I don't think we're talking about an ice storm. This is going to be different than all the freezing rain we saw last winter. These will be ice pellets, which accumulate almost like snow, just at a much lower rate, and can get slippery. So we probably could be looking at between a tenth and a half an inch of just sleet pellets in that dark red area. One other thing I do want to show you would be that temperature profile here for you. Take a look at how our model really tries to deal with the temperatures. We'll start this again here, and you'll notice we start off in the 50s, but as we head towards Sunday, we see that cold air rushes in, and that cold air brings in those temperatures that get down into the 30s. That's why I'm thinking rain that does go over to snow. I know we're sitting warm right now. I know that we had a springtime thunderstorm yesterday, and it would appear that how is it going to snow? It's so warm. Trust me, I know. But we've dealt with this setup before, and if you've lived in Southern Maryland long enough, you know that some of our biggest snows happen one day after we're in the 60s. So we'll walk through this with you. Let's take a look at that general snowfall forecast. I upgraded much of our region from just about under an inch to about 3 to 6 inches, and that's really focused from Annapolis to DC point south. And we'll zoom in on our local region here in a second so you can get those hyper local snow totals. But what I do want to show you is that as you head further north, you're going to be looking at lower snowfall totals. I think maybe just a coating to maybe up to an inch north of DC. DC might be getting in on a 1 to 3 inch band. We're likely sitting in a 3 to 6 inch band here in the northern neck and over towards southern Maryland. But then as you head down to the south and east, down towards the lower eastern shore, central parts of Virginia, you're looking at mixing issues with that prolonged period of sleet, maybe only 1 to 3 inches. Let's zoom in a little bit closer here. Here's your live local look at our forecast. I think you're going to find the highest snow totals from Prince Frederick to Mechanicsville over to just north of Newburgh, on up towards Shadyside, Brandywine, and Akakie. That is going to be the area that's probably, a 15 to 20 mile zone, but I think that'll be the zone that could see the potential of 3 to 5 inches, and you could be talking about a little bit more if that banding sets up right and that transition to sleet happens as quick as we think it will. I don't think everyone will see 6 or 7 inches, but we could see a couple of communities that could see that much snow. And again, I think it's going to be northern Calvert County, northern Charles, southern PG, southern Anne Arundel. That will be the zone where you could be looking at the highest snow totals. Once you head south of that, we're talking about issues with mixing. So snow totals drop off a little bit. Once you head towards St. Leonard, Lusby, Leonardtown, on over towards Hollywood, Pax River, Lexington Park, you're probably talking 2 to 4 inches. Not too far off from 3 to 5, but it is a little bit of a drop. And then once you get south of Lexington Park, you're probably only talking about 1 to 3 inches, because I think that will be the zone where we could be looking at mixing issues. Yesterday we wanted a northwest trend, and we got it. However, when we talk about a northwest trend like this, that will start to introduce the idea of some warmer air sticking around a little longer for our southernmost communities. And if you live down a ridge or dam or in St. Mary's City, you know how this typically goes. So you will be in a lower snowfall range, but I do think you will see accumulating snow in your region. And when we talk about regional impacts, the regional outlook for you going into tomorrow, I think we're talking about moderate impacts in the Baltimore metro area, the capital region here in southern Maryland, the northern neck, and throughout the Delmarva Peninsula, coming from light to moderate bands of snow pushing throughout the day, and we could be looking at some more heavy bands of snow pushing in. That ice potential is keyed as elevated, but it's coming from sleet, not freezing rain. So I don't think we're talking about a glaze of ice tomorrow, but southern areas could be looking at 1 to 2, maybe even more hours of sleet for you. Winds will be gusting upwards of 20 to 30 miles an hour throughout the day, and that's going to be what brings in those colder temperatures. Road impacts are up to medium. I think our main roads will have a really hard time accumulating snowfall. We've been in the 60s. Our blacktop surfaces are going to hold on to that heat a little bit longer, so I think most of our highways, thinking Route 4, Route 2, 235, 301, Route 6. These areas, Route 5, I think those main highways should be largely fine in terms of snow accumulation. I think they will just be wet. However, if we were to get heavy bands of snow that can overcompensate for the melting that will happen, then you could be looking at slick spots. I think you will face slick spots on secondary roads and on back roads, especially ones that aren't paved. I think that'll be the issue we're talking about. This will likely impact schools, this will likely impact travel, and this will likely impact businesses. I will have a full school odds forecast out later on this afternoon, but typically when we talk about this much snow, you're probably talking about school impacts that could last all day. So we will watch that potential, and while we might not look at a lot of accumulation on snow, visibility, or a lot of accumulation on roads, the heavy snow could lead to reduced visibilities as you head out tomorrow morning. So do expect an impact for your morning commute. And to kind of sum everything together, I think this is really what's going to help you get through it. I know a lot of people like this graphic. I like making it. It's the threat timeline, and this one really answers a lot of those questions. When does it start? When will it be the worst? What are we looking at? What are the temperatures? When will the roads get bad? We break this down, and you see the timeline there. Rain initially starts to move in probably after 10 o'clock tonight, and then we see that rain stick around for maybe a couple of hours as we transition over to a sleet mix between about 1 and 4, and I think between 2 and 5 a.m. then we start to switch over to that snow, which could be steady at times, especially across northern communities. And we should begin to see clearing tomorrow afternoon. You can see how those temperatures drop quickly overnight going into tomorrow. By 10 o'clock, we're sitting at 45, but by sunrise, right around 6, 7 o'clock, temperatures are down to freezing. We might even drop down below freezing for a bit, so that could lead to some slick spots developing. So we will see how this works out. I know that we're going to be talking about bands of snow pushing through. If we come back over here to our future cast, let's take our precip, and we'll just let this play through. This shows you, I mean, that timing, this will loop through a couple of times. We've now introduced the idea of a much more widespread snow event because of that northwest trend we saw overnight. That's why snowfall totals have needed to be increased. And we're looking at a lot more moisture with this. So we're a little colder, we have more precip, and the storm track's a little bit closer to us. Now you might start seeing some crazy snowfall numbers. A lot of our models are putting down a lot of snow. Our America model is putting down between 6 to 12 inches. Our European model is putting down between 6 to 12 inches. And I know a lot of people like looking at those models, and you probably will see those posted around social media today. I wouldn't buy that we're going to see 14 inches of snow. The issue is that would be if we were sitting, we'd been at freezing for a day or two, and we're talking about cold air that's sticking around, and we're sitting at a 10-to-1 ratio, which means that for every 1 inch of liquid moisture, we get 10 inches of snow. We're not likely looking at that type of a setup. This is going to be a heavy wet snow, so that ratio is going to be a little bit more like 5-to-1. So for every inch of liquid, we get 5 inches of snow. So you're going to want to cut that in half. So if you see a model that shows 12 inches of snow, it's probably more like 5 or 6 inches. And we could be talking about dry air being an issue tomorrow as well. As cold air drives in, it's typically much more of a dry air. So that's what's leading into my forecast, and that's why my forecast is probably not as high as you might see in other from other outlets. If we get back to the snowfall forecast for you, I think I feel confident with this 3 to 6. If we see additional trends, maybe I'll need to revise this forecast this afternoon. But that's why I got this out as early as I did this morning, because that forecast needed to be updated. I didn't think that seeing less than an inch was likely at all anymore. 3 to 6 is a lot more likely. And if these trends continue and we need to up this forecast again, we can do so this afternoon. So I don't think we will go much higher than I have right now, but I do think that we are sitting in a pretty good spot for this system. And we'll kind of see how this goes through. So if you have any questions, let me know. I would try to scroll through, but I got the notification that between all of our social media platforms, I'm over 100 comments. So if you have any questions, let me know. I don't think I'll have the ability to scroll all the way back up through. And if there are no questions, then we'll kind of get into the science part of this forecast. So for those of you that want to stick around for that, we'll go into the models. We'll take a look at what's going on. I'll kind of break down what I'm seeing in more of a layman's terms for you. But I think this is going to be a fun couple of hours. I think we're likely looking at the biggest snow we've seen in a couple of years. Last year we saw some snow in February, but it was more ice, and it all kind of happened within a 3-week period, and some areas got like 3 or 4 inches, but that was about it. Winter before, we saw literally nothing, so this will probably be the biggest storm for us since January 2019. So I don't actually see any questions, which makes me happy. Not because I don't want to answer them, but because that means I've done a good job explaining this. And I think if you want a more in-depth look at this and it's written out, just click on that link over at jbweather.net. It took like a good 3 hours last night to come work through that entire document, write it all out, but it's all there for you, which I think helps. And Wesley's talking a 4 to 8 zone. Let's get into the models here for you, and we'll talk about it, because Wesley, you might be onto something. There's something I won't discount. Let me bring you on over here to our modeling. We're going to switch us on over to our European model. We love looking at the European model. This is the newest run for you. We'll go 3-hour precip type. And this is sitting tonight. And over where you see my mouse, that is a little timestamp for you. We're sitting at right around 1 o'clock. Let's push this forward. This is 7 o'clock. It has some light rain. And I want to show you the temperature profile, actually, as we push through this as well. At 7 o'clock, this has us still in the 50s. Ugh, I know. But you can see as you push forward towards 9, 10, 11, you can see how that cold air dives in, so that by 1 o'clock, we're now down towards 41, 43 degrees. And then by sunrise tomorrow, this model, the European, 28 on up towards DC, 32 in Leonardtown. It really drives in that colder air. But let's come back here. Let's show you what we're talking about in terms of precip type. This model, by 1 o'clock, it doesn't have much, so maybe we don't see that much rain, but by the time we head over towards 4 o'clock, we're talking about snow beginning to work in, and you can see where we have maybe some more moderate areas of snow. And then the European, by sunrise, it has snow really kind of focused here south of DC. So this would be the area that our model currently has, is seeing the heaviest snow, and it really tapers off the further north you go. Where I'm at in Pennsylvania, we're not going to see much from this, where in Southern Maryland, you're going to see a decent amount. And you really do want these southern siding storms to produce good Southern Maryland snow. This model doesn't leave Southern St. Mary's with as much mixing, but we do see as we push towards 10 o'clock, it might have a little bit of mixing right in this zone. So that's that area we just pointed out, but you can still see where it has that heavier snow setting up in parts of the area. If I were to take this back, and let's actually take a more regional view, and like we did yesterday, does this pass through the Goldilocks zone? We said our Goldilocks zone for good Southern Maryland snowstorms passes between Virginia Beach going out to sea and Cape Hatteras going out to sea. Anything south of that is likely too far south to get moisture into our region. Anything north of that, we're talking about widespread mixing issues. And the European model, look at that. It places it right in the middle of that zone. And it continues that thread of snow. This is 1 o'clock, still has snow falling, and it begins to push up by 4 o'clock. Now, how much snow does this put down? And I want to just preface this with, this is not my forecast. I'm actually going to write that out for you. So this is just our model data for you. But the amount of snow that this model puts down, talk about a reversal. Look at it, puts down a decent amount. I mean, I know you see right away, you might hone in on our region, and it's showing upwards of a foot of snow. Again, I don't think that's going to happen. This model is based on a 10 to 1 ratio. Again, we know we're probably talking much more like a 5 to 1 ratio. So you're going to want to cut all these totals in half that you see, right? So if we cut it in half, that would have an area, if we were to really hone in on our, like right in here, instead of like a 6 to 12, it's maybe like a 3 to 6, maybe more like a 4 to 8 zone. So while we will see heavy snow, and I do think the placement of this is good, I think it might be just a little overdone. What I also want to show you would be our futurecast model. And what it does for snowfall. I showed you this just a little bit ago, what it does with the precip. So let me get this switched on over here to... All right, we need to take a couple of these layers off. Let's kind of zoom us right into our region. Let's kind of... So our futurecast model, let me make sure I got this loaded up correctly. Maybe it's not, yeah, I'm not seeing it. So what I'm going to do actually is come back here while I let that load up, and I'll see if you have any questions. I just need to get the program restarted. If you remember from winter weather coverage, that's something we need to do a lot. So let me come through here. I'm not seeing any questions, which is really comforting to me. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Ren. I appreciate that. Hey, I appreciate that, Tanya. Thank you. Yeah, so I do think that I try my best when I do these forecasts to break it down, because I think a lot of people want to know what's a realistic forecast, and people also want to know how could this go wrong. I mean, everyone wants to be a weather forecaster nowadays, so I just try to be transparent with it. So let's come back over here. We'll let the map repopulate a little bit, see if we're able to. There we go. I think that. So here's how our model depicts the potential for snowfall as you push on through. So let's get this over towards about 10 o'clock. You'll see it has some snow up towards the mountains, and when you start to see more grays, blues, purples, you'll see where the heaviest snow is. By midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, it starts to bring snow into the region. And this is, again, accumulation. What this has by 3 o'clock is just over ½ an inch in DC. It's getting on up towards about 2 inches out towards the mountains where they've already seen the snow. Nothing really in our local area just yet. As you push this towards 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock, it really starts to ramp up that snow, especially north of DC where they'll switch over first. But I don't think the highest totals will be here. They will see the snow first, but they won't see the highest totals because our precip rates won't be as good. As you push this towards 6 and 7 o'clock, it starts to bring that 2-inch line that's represented here by the blue down into parts of our region. So this puts right around 2 inches over towards Prince Frederick, right around 2 inches down towards La Plata, right around an inch in Lexington Park by daybreak tomorrow. This has about 3 inches in DC, just about 3 inches in Annapolis. To push this forward towards about 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock, our model, which typically does a pretty good job of accounting for those lower ratios, still goes bonkers. You see this purple line here. That would be indicative of 6-inch total. So it brings 6 inches into parts of Charles County, brings in more like 3 to 5 inches throughout much of the region, even down here towards southern St. Mary's County, getting you on up over towards 2. By about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, look at that. It really kind of brings in a widespread swath here of over 6 inches. I mean, that's what this model is doing. I think it is probably still a little overdone, but by the time we head over towards after lunchtime, this model has upwards of over 9 inches of snow for some of you. Do I think this is overdone? 100%, but it is something to take a look at. It's something to keep in mind. And you can see the general idea, even if we discount the totals, it places the heaviest snow from DC really down towards Richmond. I think there will be a sharp cutoff to the north where in southern Pennsylvania you go from nothing to where you head over towards Washington, you're talking about a decent amount of snow. So, yeah, I think the placement I have right now for this snow zone, for the highest snow totals, is probably going to be the correct placement for it. I do see Becky wants to know about travel tomorrow morning. I will show you the threat timeline. Travel will probably be impacted tomorrow, especially tomorrow morning when you're talking heavy snow coming down. So, oh, Corey, I don't think anyone wants me as president. I don't know. I don't know about that, but I do appreciate the sentiment of that comment. So there's a lot to look at. It was a long night looking over everything. We really saw this northwest trend take place right around dinner time last night, and it was like, whoa, we really got to take a look at this. And sure enough, this is exactly what we're seeing across the region. So this is going to be, I think, a very active 24, 36 hours. We keep the cold temperatures around through tomorrow, and then we have another chance of maybe a rain-snow mix as we head over towards Friday. So we are kicking 2022 off with an actual winter-like pattern, which I think is comforting a little bit because December made us think, where's winter? And now we flipped the calendar and we're seeing consistently more cold air. Not yet, but we will. And we'll be talking, I think, about more snow chances as we head throughout the month. Let's see, West State Fall model holds midday. You think you'll be introducing the 4 to 8? My issue with upping this to 4 to 8, while there is a lot of, I just showed you a lot of model consensus that shows that 4 to 8 inches could be possible across our region. My issue with that is that means I'm then guaranteeing that people see 4 inches, and I'm not sure anyone is guaranteed to see that much. I do think, and I know this is real minute, but I do think people are a little bit more promised to see at least 3 inches than 4, and when I do a 4 to 8, people automatically assume we're seeing 8 inches of snow. So as much as I like to make this about science, there is also a component of communication and messaging and public perception that needs to go into these forecasts. So while honestly this forecast should be like a 3 to 7, 3 to 8 inch range, that's not feasible. You need to narrow it down, and I don't want people taking the message that we're seeing 8 inches of snow. Now, if our modeling continues to trend in the correct direction today, maybe we introduce that. But I think 3 to 6 is a pretty good spot to be sitting in right now. Sharon wants to know if we'll see thunder snow. I wouldn't rule it out. I don't think it'll be that likely. This isn't that dynamic of a system. But if you get in one of those heavier bands where you can get some convective bursts, I think you could see some thunder snow. Brittany wants to know about schools. I mean, normally in Southern Maryland, you talk about a 3 to 6 inch storm, you're typically talking about schools being closed. I know that this is weird right now with virtual learning, and that impacts how schools close. So I can't speak on whether or not your kid, or if you're a teacher, or you're just interested, if anyone will have virtual learning. However, I do think that getting to school tomorrow morning will be maybe not necessarily impossible, but will be very difficult. So I think, I mean, a delay won't do Jack Whitty. I mean, because you just push kids coming in instead of at 7 o'clock at 9. And if we take a look at the future cast, let's take a look at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, right? So if this wants to load up, we'll let this play through. I mean, 9 o'clock, I mean, honestly, schools will probably end up closing, but we'll see. 6 o'clock, I mean, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I mean, you push schools coming in 2 hours later, you're still talking heavy snow. If anything, you'd want to come in at 7 when it's just the sleet. I mean, and even just sleet, right? So I would assume schools will probably end up closing for those of you that have stuck around. That would be my forecast right now, but I'll make a more formalized forecast as we head into this afternoon. Let's see. Introduce isolated 6 to 8, maybe. Maybe. Again, people then hold on to that, but we'll see. We'll see where things stand as we head a little bit later. Tiffany wants to know about Nanjamoy. Let me bring it back on over here. I know that's moving there at the bottom, but if we just zoom in here, you can see a nice 3 to 6 inches. Let's see, Tracy. One thing for sure is we will get, well, exactly, we'll get what we get. Yes, so I think this will be fun, and we're gonna do another one of these live streams this evening. We'll have more model data at that point, um, and we'll have a better idea. I think we'll have an update with our winter weather alerts, so that'll be nice. So yeah, I think yeah, we have a lot going on. But yeah, I think tomorrow will be a nice snow day for much of the region. I mean, if Southern Maryland schools typically close when we have an inch of snow, let alone 3 to 6 with like the potential of a little bit of a wintry mix. So we'll see what's going on. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I have. I don't know how much more of this forecast will change this afternoon. If I need to update it, I will. But I have all intentions of having this forecast stand as a final call. But if we need to make some minor changes, we'll make them, and I'll let you know what those look like. So stay tuned. We will continue to talk about this. Yeah, goldfish are currently sitting in the kitchen. They cannot be next to me right now, or that's all I will eat. So, we'll talk about it. But thank you all for joining me. You can always get my forecast here on Facebook, where the vast majority of you do follow me. You can get updates on Twitter at JB_weather, Instagram at JBweather, on YouTube, youtube.com/JBweather, and of course on the website, jbweather.net. And yeah, stick around. I will continue to have updates throughout the day, and I will potentially have an update to this forecast this afternoon, but we'll see what goes on. We'll talk about it then. We'll probably do another one of these between 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock, somewhere in that time frame, right around the dinner time hours. So stay tuned. I will continue to keep you updated. In the meantime, I'm forecaster John Bordash. Thank you for joining me and getting the latest information, and you can always count on JB Weather for accurate Southern Maryland forecasts. Stay with us for the latest information.
Check the forecast anytime online at jbweather.net.